Eli Carson had been riding the same dusty road home for years, and he thought he had seen just about everything the desert could show a man. The long stretches of golden sand, the dry bushes waving in the hot wind, and the endless sky that burned bright blue all afternoon were all familiar to him. He had spent the whole day working in town, buying supplies for the ranch, fixing a broken trailer, and talking with a few old friends at the feed store. Now he was tired in that deep sort of way that settles into a person's bones after long hours under the Arizona sun. All he wanted was to get back to his small ranch, kick off his boots, and rest. The sun was sinking low when he noticed someone far ahead on the side of the road. It wasn't unusual to see people walking long distances in this part of the state. But as he drew closer, he realized the person wasn't just walking. She was standing still, watching his truck approach like she wasn't sure whether to wave him down or step back into the brush. Eli slowed his truck a little. The woman looked tired, so tired that her shoulders slumped forward and her hands hung loosely at her sides. Her clothes were dusty, her hair looked tangled from the wind, and her face carried the kind of exhaustion a person earns only after pushing themselves too far. She looked like she had been walking for miles under the sharp heat of the day. He brought the truck to a stop a short distance away. The woman stepped forward slowly, as if each movement took effort. When she reached his window, she offered a small, hesitant smile. "Sir, I'm sorry to bother you," she said quietly. "My name is Marissa." Her voice was thin and soft, like someone who hadn't had a proper conversation in days. Eli gave a polite nod. "You all right?" he asked, keeping his tone calm. She swallowed, then spoke again. "I know this is strange. I only have $5. But, can I wash myself at your place? I'm really tired, and I haven't had a place to clean up in a while. I won't cause trouble." Eli blinked at the unexpected request. Of all the things she could have asked, water, a ride, food, she asked for a chance to wash. Something about that struck him as deeply human. She wasn't asking for comfort or money. She just wanted to feel clean again. He took a moment to think. He lived alone on his ranch. The nearest neighbor was several miles away. He had always been careful about strangers, not because he feared them, but because life in the open desert taught a man to be cautious. Still, there was something honest and weary in her eyes, something that rang true. "Where were you headed?" he asked. She looked down at the ground, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I was trying to reach my cousin's place. But when I got there today, I found out she moved away last week. I've been walking since morning. I feel so uncomfortable like this. Dust everywhere. I didn't want to keep going until I felt a little more human." Her embarrassment was visible. She didn't seem like someone used to asking for help. In fact, she looked like someone who avoided it whenever she could. Eli took a slow breath. He knew the feeling of being worn down by the desert. He also knew what it meant to need help and not want to admit it. "There's an outdoor wash area near my barn," he said finally. "It's where ranch hands clean up when they come by. You can use it." Her relief was immediate. Her shoulders softened, and her eyes brightened a little. "Thank you. Truly. I'll pay you the $5. I promise." "You don't need to pay me," Eli said. "But you can ride in the truck. It's a long walk otherwise." She opened the passenger door gently, almost like she didn't want to disturb the truck. When she sat down, Eli could see how exhausted she was. Her hands trembled slightly, and she kept her gaze on her lap as if afraid of taking up too much space. The drive to the ranch took about 10 minutes. Neither spoke much at first. The only sound was the hum of the engine and the whisper of the wind through the open windows. After a moment, she spoke softly. "I'm sorry if I made you nervous asking that way." "You didn't," Eli replied. "Just unexpected, that's all." She nodded and fell quiet again. When they reached the ranch, Eli parked near the barn. The building was old but clean. with a metal roof that glowed red from the setting sun. Behind it was a wooden platform with a large water barrel, a hose, a drain area, and shelves with soap and towels. It wasn't fancy, but it was more comfortable than nothing. "You can wash up here," he said, pointing toward the area. "I'll grab you a clean towel." She stepped down from the truck carefully, looking around as if trying to understand whether she truly belonged there. When Eli handed her the towel, she held it with both hands like it was something precious. "I really, really appreciate this. I don't know how to thank you." "No need," Eli said. "Take your time." He walked a few steps away to give her privacy. He didn't want her feeling watched or uncomfortable. Instead, he went to the porch, took off his hat, and wiped his forehead. The air smelled like sage and warm wood. The sky was turning soft shades of orange and pink, and the early evening breeze carried a peaceful quiet. As she washed, he tried not to think too much, but he couldn't help wondering what kind of days she had been through. He could hear the faint splash of water and the gentle movements as she scrubbed away the dust of her long walk. He kept himself busy by checking on the horses and sweeping the porch. After a while, she walked toward him again. Her hair was pulled back neatly now. Her face was clean, and she looked refreshed, though still tired. Her eyes looked clearer too, as if washing away the dirt had washed away a layer of worry. "Thank you," she said again. "That meant more to me than you know." "You're welcome," Eli replied. "You look like you needed it." She smiled a small, soft smile that carried gratitude rather than joy. She reached into her pocket and held out the $5 bill. "Please. I want you to take it." Eli shook his head. "Keep it. You might need it later." She didn't argue, but she lowered the bill slowly, slipping it back into her pocket. Eli felt a kind of quiet heaviness settle between them. Not uncomfortable, but human. She was someone who had hit a rough part of her path, someone trying to hold on to dignity despite the obstacles. "You hungry?" he asked gently. She hesitated. "Only if it's no trouble." "It's not," he said. "I was going to make dinner anyway." He led her toward the porch, where a small wooden table sat near the door. As they walked, she looked around the ranch, the open fields, the fence lines stretching toward the horizon, the soft sounds of animals settling for the night. It seemed to calm her. Eli started preparing a simple meal: beans, warm bread, and some vegetables. As he cooked, she stood nearby, unsure whether to sit or help. Eventually, she offered to hand him plates and utensils, and he accepted. They didn't speak much, but the silence wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like the kind of quiet shared by two people who had both lived through long, tiring days. When dinner was ready, they sat together, and for the first time since he met her, Marissa looked less weighed down. She ate slowly, savoring each bite as though it restored a little strength to her tired body. It was then, in the soft light of evening, that Eli wondered if this simple act, letting her wash up, might be the most important thing he had done all week. Maybe even all month. And he sensed that for her, it was something she would remember long after she left his ranch. The night air settled gently over the ranch as stars began appearing one by one, like small white lanterns hung in the sky. After dinner, Eli and Marissa sat quietly on the porch. The soft sounds of the desert, a distant coyote call, the rustle of dry grass, the slow creaking of the wooden porch boards filled the silence between them. Neither felt the need to talk right away. Sometimes, a peaceful moment says more than words. Marissa held her warm cup of tea with both hands. The steam curled around her face, which looked calmer now. She gazed out toward the horizon, where the last bit of sunlight faded behind the hills. It had been a long day for her. Maybe one of the hardest she had faced in a while. Yet here she was, finally feeling clean, fed, and safe for the first time in days. That alone felt like a small blessing. "You can rest in the barn's spare room tonight," Eli said gently, breaking the quiet. "It's simple, but it's clean. Got a cot, blankets, and a lamp. Travelers use it from time to time. Marissa looked at him with surprise, then gratitude. Are you sure? I don't want to trouble you more than I already have. It's no trouble, he assured her. You look like you could use a good rest. She nodded slowly. I really could. When they finished their tea, Eli walked her to the barn. The inside smelled of hay and warm cedar wood. Horses shifted softly in their stalls, curious but calm. Eli pointed toward the small room in the corner, a space built years ago by his father for passing ranch hands or neighbors who needed a place to sleep during storms. The bed was simple but tidy. A folded quilt lay on top of the cot, and a small dresser stood beside it. You'll be all right here, Eli said. If you need anything, just knock on the porch door. She stood in the doorway, holding her backpack close. Thank you, Eli. I don't know what I would have done without your kindness. He tipped his hat slightly. Get some rest. We'll talk in the morning. Marissa stepped inside and gently closed the door. A moment later, Eli heard the small click of the lamp being turned on. The warm glow slipped under the wooden frame, painting a soft line of light across the barn floor. He smiled a little to himself, then walked back to the house. He didn't know why. Helping her felt so natural. Maybe it was because he'd learned from his father that sometimes the smallest help can change someone's entire day. Inside his home, he washed the dishes and prepared for bed. But before he slept, he took one last look out the window at the barn, just to be sure everything felt right. The lamp still glowed gently, and a calm stillness filled the air. It gave him a sense of peace to know she was safe. Marissa, meanwhile, sat on the edge of the cot. She felt the rough but soft quilt beneath her hands. For the first time in days, she could breathe without the tightness of worry. She washed her face again at the small sink and brushed her hair with the comb she carried. Then she lay down, letting the quiet of the ranch settle around her like a warm blanket. As she closed her eyes, she thought about the long walk that had brought her here. The heat, the dust, the disappointment of finding her cousin gone. She remembered the moment she had seen Eli's truck, how unsure she had been, how afraid he might refuse or misunderstand her. But he hadn't. His kindness had humbled her. And now, lying in a safe place, she felt a small spark of hope return. She fell asleep quickly and deeply. Morning arrived with a soft golden light. Birds chirped in the nearby trees, and the cool air smelled fresh with dew. Eli woke early, as ranchers usually do. After feeding the animals, he brewed coffee and set out 2 mugs on the porch table. He didn't want to rush her, but he knew she'd need a plan for the day. A few minutes later, he saw her walking from the barn toward the house. Her hair was neatly tied, her clothes washed and dried from the night before. She looked more rested, still tired, but stronger. Good morning, he said with a small smile. Good morning, she replied softly. I slept better than I have in a long time. That's good to hear. Coffee? Yes, please. They sat at the porch table. The air was gentle and cool, and the morning sun warmed the tops of the hills. Marissa held the mug with both hands again, taking in the warmth. After a moment, she spoke. I should get to the town nearby. My aunt will be at the community center today. She can help me get back on track. I can take you, Eli said simply. It's on my way to pick up feed. Her eyebrows lifted in surprise. Are you sure? I don't want to take advantage. You're not, he said calmly. It's no trouble. She smiled shyly. Thank you. While she finished her coffee, Eli packed the truck with the supplies he needed to bring to town later and made sure there was space for her bag. Marissa helped by folding the blanket she used and tidying the small barn room, wanting to leave it as clean as she found it. By the time they were ready to go, the sun had risen fully, brightening the sand and shining across the fences. They climbed into the truck and began the drive toward town. The road stretched long and empty, but the ride felt peaceful. Marissa looked out the window at the open land, taking in the shapes of the mountains and the soft roll of the hills. After a few minutes, she began to speak. Not because she felt pressured, but because silence sometimes invites honesty. "I used to think I could handle everything alone," she said. "I've always tried to help others, but rarely asked for help myself. It felt like something I shouldn't do." Eli nodded. "A lot of people feel that way. Al, I guess I reached a point where I couldn't keep going without asking," she whispered. "It was embarrassing at first, but then you helped me without hesitation. It meant more than I can say." "No shame in needing help," Eli replied gently. She looked at him, her eyes soft. "You're a good man, Eli. I hope you know that." He glanced at her briefly, then back at the road. "I just did what anyone should do." The rest of the ride passed quietly but comfortably. When they reached the small town, the buildings stood neat and clean around a wide-open square. The community center sat near the middle, a place where local families often gathered. Children played outside, while adults chatted near the entrance. Eli parked the truck and helped her carry her bag out. She stood there for a moment, present, looking around with a mixture of relief and nervousness. This place was her next step, a place where family waited for her. "Well," Eli said, adjusting his hat, "you're here." She turned to him, holding her bag tightly. "I don't really have the right words, but thank you for everything. For trusting me. For letting me clean up. For giving me a place to sleep. For the ride. It all matters more than you know." "You're welcome," he said simply. She reached into her pocket again and brought out the $5 bill. She held it between her fingers and pressed it toward him. "Please take it this time," she said softly. "Not as payment, but as a memory. So you remember that your small kindness changed someone's whole day." Eli hesitated. Then, seeing the sincerity in her eyes, finally accepted it. She smiled a warm, grateful smile, then stepped back. "Maybe one day, I can repay your kindness to someone else. That's the best way to do it," he replied. With one last nod, she turned and walked toward the community center. Eli watched her go, watched her greet the people inside, watched as relief slowly settled across her shoulders. And as he stood there, he realized something simple but powerful. Sometimes, helping one person doesn't make the world different, but it makes their world different. And that was enough. He tipped his hat, climbed back into his truck, and began the drive home carrying with him a quiet sense of peace and the folded $5 bill tucked safely into his shirt pocket.